Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, whichever part of the world you are in. I'm right now calling from India. And it's absolutely a pleasure to be on LinkedIn Live yet again. And firstly, my name is Raja Rajamannar, and I'm the Chief Marketing and Communications Officer of MasterCard and also the President of MasterCard's healthcare business. And firstly, before I jump into some of the details, if you can type into the chat box wherever you are calling from in the world, that'll be a nice way to see where people are coming in from. That'll be very helpful. So I know a few short 2 years back, actually, I have written a book called Quantum Marketing with the premise that marketing is going to be completely put on its head with the new technologies that are coming in, with the data proliferation. Literally, it's going to be a deluge of data and the cultural shifts that are going to be nothing short of tectonic that are happening around the world. And we need to really reinvent and reimagine marketing the way we know it to what will be most appropriate for this future. And this book has met with some good amount of success, with it being a Wall Street Journal bestseller. And it has been published now in 9 languages around the world. In 4 other countries, it has become a bestseller. And it has about 6 book awards, international book awards as well. So that's all the cheap thrill factor. But what I wanted to do was to really continue the engagement and conversation with other marketing peers from around the world. So I started this LinkedIn Live newsletter, actual LinkedIn newsletter, which has so far garnered about 105,000 plus subscribers, which has been really gratifying and lots of engagement. And as a further follow-up of that is what I started this LinkedIn Live series. And today, it's absolutely a pleasure and delight for me to welcome a wonderful peer, great human being, a fantastic marketer, who has also been very kind to endorse and give comment about my book as well, which is on the back cover of the book, which is Chris Capossela. Chris, welcome very much, and thank you very much for the time. And there is a specific reason why we selected you, but I'll come to that in a minute. But welcome, and really delight to have you here.
Well, thanks, Raja. It's great, great to be able to join you. And I love the book. Congratulations on the success with it. I was honored to get a chance to contribute and be one of the first people to read, I guess, the near final copy. And I love how you sort of evolved it into the LinkedIn Live series. Obviously, we're very happy you chose LinkedIn, needless to say.
Absolutely. So it's been really a delight. And over the years that I have interacted with you, Chris, I have nothing but the highest regard for what you are accomplishing, both as a marketer, but also what you're doing to humanity at large. And I'll come to that in a minute, because that's a very important aspect which is often ignored by most of the marketers. And that's something which they have lessons to learn from what you do and how you do at Microsoft. But the reason why, firstly, I wanted you to be on this show, and I was really looking forward to welcome you, is not just because of anything else, but Microsoft is one of those companies, I think. It has reinvented itself in beautiful ways. The business has been going through major transformations, right? Each time a new challenge was coming at it, it was always ahead of it. And if I can list out one company which I can say has future-proofed itself time and again, and even today with the latest announcements on the advances with artificial intelligence being blended into Bing, and then Bing and the search engine now taking a different kind of an approach and taking it to a different level, actually, or your investment, which is gigantic in areas like OpenAI with the chat GPT and that kind of a thing, or the pursuit in the gaming industry. It's been an amazing kind of a company, an amazing journey. And all of this it was doing with not much of a song and drama. It was absolutely substantial and beautifully done, right? So far, so I would regard Microsoft as one of those real future-proof companies, which keeps future-proofing itself consistently. And you have been with this company and associated and having an inside track over the last few decades that you have been there with the company. So the first question that I wanted to ask you was, can you just quickly give a brief overview about your career, where you started and where you are now? That'd be hugely helpful for our audience and for me too.
Yeah, great. Sure. So, I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, in an Italian-American neighborhood and an Italian-American family. And my parents opened up a restaurant when they were very, very young, in their late teens. And that restaurant became the place that we grew up. and we, myself and my two brothers, ran around the restaurant, doing all the different jobs as we grew up. And I worked there, into college, and it's kind of the only job I've had other than Microsoft. I joined Microsoft 31 years ago, believe it or not, and never intended to be there this long. But I've done many, many different jobs at the company, in engineering, in operations, in sales, and in marketing. And so I've been able to see a huge perspective, not by just staying in one profession, but by moving around and seeing a very different part of the company. And I think that's part of why I've stayed so long, is just that, I've had many different experiences, even though my paycheck has always come from the same corporation. Many times it felt like I was working at a totally different company. So it's a little bit of an unusual journey in that I haven't been a tried and true marketer my whole life. But it's been absolutely wonderful. And I feel very, very blessed to have been able to work at the company under three totally different leaders: Bill Gates, Steve Ballmer, and now Satya Nadella.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the beauty, right? Have been actually mentioning this to both my team members as well as to the marketing peers elsewhere, is when you're actually having experiences outside of marketing as well, that will make you a true holistic marketer when you come back into marketing. It'll make you so much more richer. You're able to connect the dots between marketing and the rest of the business in a very compelling and a convincing, credible fashion. And I think that's what you really stand testimony to yourself, having held so many different kinds of roles and not just have a single track marketing career trajectory, which is fantastic. Now, let me come to some of the fun stuff, right? Everyone talks about ChatGPT, and it has become, both a game and a social conversation at various parties. And oh, have you tried ChatGPT? And by the way, I'm a subscriber to it. I'm a paid subscriber. I'm paying my $20, and I'm having enormous amount of fun. Right now, I'm having fun. I have to find a good way to utilize it for my work or for whatever my avocations are. But ChatGPT is just but one manifestation of what AI can bring. It's a demonstration of what AI is, but AI is much, much broader. Now, you have the unique and enviable advantage of having the inside track. And how do you use ChatGPT, or how do you use AI in general? And at least in the near term, how do you look at this entire application coming in the field of marketing from your perspective?
Yeah, well, there's a lot. There's a lot there, but I would say we are big believers that AI is going to be the defining technology of our time, and we're obviously very optimistic about what it can do for individuals, for companies, for societies, and that's an awesome responsibility, I would say. Microsoft has partnered with OpenAI since 2019, to develop and scale responsibly this AI tech. And we've recently made a whole slew of announcements about building on top of the OpenAI tech to bring AI capabilities to our search engine with the new Bing, to our browser with Edge, to Microsoft 365 and our productivity tools. We've already brought it to developers with something called GitHub Copilot. We're bringing it to Azure for developers, and many, many more. So I'm a big user of it, obviously. You go from playing around with it, where you ask it to write a poem, or you ask it to write an email for you, and sort of getting a little bit of a sense for it. And then, in our case, we're using it inside of marketing to do a whole slew of different tasks. And we're learning what it does really well, and we're learning what it isn't well suited for. Today, we find it to be very helpful for longer form content creation, and not quite as helpful for very short form content creation. So think about a blog as an area where we find it can be very helpful and make us far more productive. And yet something like a tweet, it's less well geared towards, at least today, in saving us time. But for every medium that we do marketing, we are experimenting. We're playing with ChatGPT itself. We're playing with the tools that we're building in our products, like the new Bing. And of course, we're playing with third-party products to understand, where's the real value in the market today. But we're at the very, very beginning. And I think it's exciting, but nobody knows the exact sort of answers as to where everything ends up.
Yeah, in fact, in my own context, and I believe that I'm a good writer. In my own mind, I am. And I also write poems. And I used to sort of, sometimes send poems to my colleagues about some topic on the subject of, something happened at MasterCard, and I would send it and I would get compliments and kudos. So this time I discovered that by putting it into ChatGPT, it has produced a beautiful haiku on priceless. It brought in priceless, it brought in MasterCard. I said, my God, this would have taken me 40, 45 minutes, if at all, to come to that quality. And it just did it. Give me two things. One is a scare, saying that what I probably had as a competitive advantage, if you were to say, amongst the peer set, that's completely now sort of decimated on one level. But on the other hand, what would have taken me 40 minutes just got done in less than 10 seconds. So it's a perspective from how you would actually approach it. But from your perspective, in terms of how do you think it's going to affect the marketing industry? There are obviously any technology has two sides to it. I would just like to get a little bit more. You have talked about where it can be potentially used and not. And from this here, if you can just sort of highlight in terms of what the good and the bad could be out of this whole thing.
Yeah, for sure. It's great. I mean, I think the whole notion of being able to generate text after reasoning over huge amounts of data is very valuable. The ability to generate images from someone just being able to use a natural language description of what you want the image to have or not have in it is very powerful. The idea of being able to generate video by using natural language to describe what you want in the video. Obviously, for marketers, where you are heavy content creators, it's just an obvious tool of amplifying what you could do and being able to do things very, very fast. And so, if you just zoom out a tiny bit, if you are a content creator, this is a very, very exciting tool. Back to when you think about the invention of the word processor and you see what it does that a typewriter can't do, it's a fundamental sort of step forward. Now, we're big believers that, with every tool, that tool can be used as a weapon. And so you have to have the responsibility in place so that you limit the way something can be weaponized. And so for the way we're building it into our products, we're building it with a set of principles that essentially have the tool as a co-pilot as opposed to an autopilot. So rather than saying you're just going to outsource everything to the tool and it's going to do everything, you are actually in control. And this tool is helping you fly the plane, but at the end of the day, you're still in control of the plane, as an example. So, you can imagine in Word, as we've showed these demos, our co-pilot can generate paragraphs and paragraphs, pages and pages of content, but at the end of it, you're still looking at all of that content in the Word document, and you're the editor, you're the curator. It's your taste, it's your voice. So I think thinking of this as a tool and a weapon is a helpful way to put in perspective basically every tool that's ever been invented in humankind. And we have to do a great job being very responsible at how we use the tool so it can't be turned into a weapon.
I totally agree with you. And in fact, a couple of points I would also say is, I think a lot of what has been recently happening in the context of ChatGPT and the generative AI, it is being viewed as entire AI, but it is just one aspect of AI, right? And sometimes automation is also being mistook to be AI. I think one of the things I would feel is, as marketers, we need to really understand what exactly is AI. What are the different types that are there, or different applications, different types of whether it is generative AI or whether it is something else. We need to sort of not box them all into one, and to be able to really get to a better understanding so we're able to deploy it. Now, I have seen, for example, image creators, or I have seen voice creators, and I was told, and you don't have to comment, but I just read somewhere that Microsoft has been working on a voice that actually it can read, it can hear the voice for about 3 minutes or something of that sort, and then it can then read reams in my voice and my tone and intonation, etc., which could be fantastic to me as a user. But to your point, it can also be weaponized and make somebody, read what they don't believe in or whatever it is. So I get that whole thing. Now, the point I wanted to actually drive at was seeing this whole development. On one hand, it's a humongous responsibility for you guys because you are at the forefront of it, and lots of positive and negative emotions around it. and you're literally defining what the future of the world is going to look like when it comes to AI in total. What is it like to be inside and inside those kind of discussions and debates and dialogues on the one hand? And the second thing, of course, as a marketer, then you want to market it through your products. It's integrated the most appropriate way and then go through. So there are two different things. So for the second part, do you use AI at this point in time to do your own marketing? And for the first part, just give us some inside track of how it feels, what kind of discussions happen in the company, and how you poke holes into different aspects, etc. It'd be wonderful to hear that.
Yeah, so the first one's relatively straightforward. Absolutely, we're using it internally. And I think we've taken an approach which is to sort of let a thousand flowers bloom, because I want a lot of experimentation within the marketing organization as to the best way to use these tools. So for the communications team, they're experimenting in certain ways. For the team that does digital campaigns to our commercial customers, they're experimenting in different ways. To the folks who do a lot of consumer-based marketing, maybe it's the Xbox team, that marketing team is experimenting in yet again different ways. And I think that's really critical. One of the obvious things you see right away is you need these tools integrated into the existing tools that marketers already use. Going out to like a website to then type something into a chat box and get content and bring it back over, it's crude and it's fine to get started, but it's not the way the world is going to work. It's not the way this will evolve. For every function, maybe I'm not answering your question yet, but for every function, there are tools we already use. And I think the opportunity is to have the normal workflow of a marketer, of a finance person, of a salesperson amplified by these co-pilot technologies. And so we're not there yet. And so what we're doing today is experimental. It's a little bit what I would call somewhat crude, but it's getting people so excited. And if you were to talk to the folks in my marketing team who get to use this as part of their job, they're like kids in a candy store. It's very interesting. They're experimenting. They're very pumped. And I would say that's the beginning of the answer to your second question, which is it's a really, really exciting environment. Despite the job eliminations that have happened in the tech industry, despite the economy being, uncertain with inflation, with many things happening, I would say that inside the halls of the company, to me, it feels like it felt when, Windows was first coming to the fore, or when the internet was first sort of people are saying, oh my gosh, this is going to change every product. It feels quite like a tectonic shift of a platform. And I know we've been talking about AI for a long, long time, as you know, Raja. But boy, now it feels like no. This is it. This is the change, the platform change. And so I think what you'd find inside the halls is a ton of excitement. I think you'd find a ton of people questioning lots of things and, trying to figure out how do we encourage experimentation, but also have a coherence with the way we talk about with what we're building, with how we're using responsible AI. It's really, really exciting. And I've had lots of cool things to work on for many years. But again, this for me is reminiscent of only two other moments in my career. One was when the graphical user interface was becoming wildly interesting and pop mainstream. And the other was when this thing called the World Wide Web was from DARPA, moving from universities into no, this is a mainstream technology. Every product will be touched by it. And so go figure out what that means. And that's really fun.
It absolutely is. And again, going back to my very first point, what's fascinating is time and again how your company has been staying ahead of the game, sometimes reinventing itself, and sometimes reinventing the whole world, literally. This chat GPT kind of a thing is you're actually changing the whole world. You're actually creating the new future. And in times when new competitors had come and then new operating systems had come or new ways of doing work have come, how you have reinvented it. For example, when you had moved to the subscription model for your Outlook at that time, that's what it was called. That was very, very bold. And a lot of people said this is the doomsday for Microsoft. Mm-hmm. And here we are. And it's so fantastic. Likewise, when you got into Xbox, what a revolutionary kind of a thing. What is a software company producing office software, suddenly getting into gaming and Xbox and all that stuff, which was fantastic and a huge success again. And I don't know, I apologize if I got my facts right, but I think the company is also investing in or wanting to invest in Activision Blizzard, I guess, which would take it to a different level of gaming functionality and gaming opportunities. So you're identifying those verticals and reinventing the company. And this is, to me, the quintessential quality of what a future proofing company would do. And there are not too many examples that you can give, which have been so successful in every iteration going to the next higher level. And if I'm a betting guy, which I am not, this is the company I would actually put all my money in because this is where the future seems to be. Right? But the point I'm trying to make it is, if you can just touch upon how this reinvention process goes, because it's not widely sort of practiced. And I don't know what is the secret sauce of how you guys actually keep coming up with one after the other so damn successfully. And like I say, you're not only future proofing yourself, but you're shaping the future itself, which is amazing.
Well, I mean, first of all, thank you for all the nice words. I would say, having lived through most of the things you talked about, we uh, we were struggling to survive. This notion that we were ahead of the curve, I would actually argue, in most cases, we were laggards. In most of these moments, we were actually second or third to the party, and we were frankly too slow. And if you study the tech industry, or if you listen to a lot of experts, they will they will tell you that you're being very, very kind to the company, and that we were slow to recognize the power of the internet. We were slow to recognize the power of the mobile phone. We were slow to recognize the move to the cloud. And we could talk about how we did it. But the first thing I would say, any company out there, it's actually quite hard to recognize what will be the big shift that you have to get ahead of. And we've been very successful as a company, but it hasn't by always been seeing what the next thing is. I actually think with ChatGPT, it's one of the very first examples where we are on the very leading edge, and we are sort of out front of a lot of our competition. But the prior chapters you talked about, I think one of the key things was we felt incredible urgency, that we could see, bad things happening to the company if we didn't completely reinvent ourselves. 9 years ago, Satya Nadella became our third CEO, and he spent a lot of his time when he became CEO trying to get the top executives to see the really dangerous position the company was in, because we were missing out on important trends that we hadn't retooled the company for. So if a CEO were to ask me, hey, what's one of the secrets of success to make the transition from, your first really successful product that gets threatened by a major shift? The lesson from Satya is, incredible urgency, because you are not going to make it. You know what I mean? You aren't going to be one of the great next companies of the next 10 years just because you have been of the past 10 years. And I think, having a front row seat to the way Satya did it, it was through getting people to recognize where the world was going, and getting people to see inside the company, to see our technology had to change dramatically. Our business model had to change dramatically, because no business model of old is going to withstand the business model of the next, when the next is based on a totally different technology. So for us, we had to move from device-based business model, where we charged you for a copy of Office for a laptop, and move it to a user-based subscription model, so Office could be on all your machines, your phones, your tablets, your PCs, however many you had. That's huge. We had to go from device-based business model for servers, where you buy a copy of Windows Server for a Dell physical server or an HP physical server, and they're married, to all of a sudden, no. That server, you rent that server. That server's just running in some data center that you don't have to worry about. And you just rent the size and the compute capacity that you want. And when you want to pause it, you hit pause and you don't pay anything. When you want it to run again, you hit play or run, and you pay for how fast the meters spin. So, we had to retool our sales force. So this, I mean, my hat's off to our CEOs. Satya has been amazing at saying, here's the next tech trend. And oh, if you think it doesn't impact the way we charge for our software, which my team does, the marketing team actually does all the pricing and licensing and business models for the company, you don't really deserve a seat here. You have to reinvent the business model of the company in the next 5 years, or we're out of business. And so I think that fear of losing, of being irrelevant, it's a great what's the word? It's a great stimulant, Raja, in getting people to rally. But you make it sound like it was so professionally done and so, so easy and effortless, like Roger Federer hitting a forehand. It's like, no. This has been so tumultuous and difficult. And we're just so lucky to still be, in the top market cap companies, because we could have failed 3 or 4 times in our past. Now I actually feel like we're super well positioned. It's going to be very hard, don't get me wrong, but this is one of those few times where I actually feel like we're in front, which is a strange feeling.
Then I would insist to say that you're being very modest, because even before ChatGPT came, you guys have become, I think, were you the first $1 trillion market cap company? Or the second?
Maybe
in
second.
any case, you're the first or second, somewhere of that, right?
I think it's second. I think Apple was first, and I think they were also first to 2 trillion, and we were second to 2 trillion as well.
Okay, but you stayed there.
Yes.
And there's a little difference in that, right? And you don't become a $2 trillion by being a laggard. It could be a fast follower, it could be a smarter follower. There are so many things that you guys have done, even all before this came. And what I think I would really feel is that now, with you guys taking the further giant step into this whole generative AI and taking it to a different level, I think probably that's where I keep saying, I need to think of investing in this company. And that's not an advice from me, folks. Some listeners, don't listen to me. I'm very bad at managing investments. But this is, when I see the future of company, this is where I see there is a phenomenal opportunity. And that's so exciting.
It is. And you're right. You're right. Just to finish up on that. One of the things we did well was to recognize where our strengths were. And even if we were late or a fast follower, leaning into those strengths, leaning into the differentiation that we could bring because of our history, and not feeling like there was nothing unique we could do. Satya often asks, why would the world be less well off if Microsoft didn't exist? Like, what is it that we uniquely bring to the planet? And that, even if a company feels like they're behind, I think that's something that you can do, is to really understand what is unique about you, and therefore, bring your unique value to the space that you might even be late on, and you can still do quite well.
Absolutely. And you have demonstrated that. I had the wonderful fortune of seeing 2 titans on stage simultaneously when Satya had come to MasterCard. And he and Ajay Banga, who happened to be from the same school apparently in Hyderabad, India, they were actually having, it was like seeing two of these luminaries, visionaries, absolute brilliance oozing from both of them. And the play was it was truly priceless. If I have to borrow my own company stuff, it was absolutely amazing and inspiring. But just moving on, from AI to, one of the things, as I talked in the book as well, there are more than 24 technologies that are coming at us, whether it is autonomous driving vehicles or Internet of Things, or you got 3D printing, 5G technologies. Already have read some articles on 6G telecom. Apparently by 2030, that will be going live. All kinds of things are coming over, right? And you got blockchains, cryptocurrencies. Before the winter or crypto winter, everyone said, okay, crypto is the way to go. Now there is a little cooling off, but still blockchains have a tremendous promise as an underlying technology and so on. Of all the technologies that are out there, including augmented reality, metaverse, and Web3 and all the good stuff, what would you think is going to be the next big technology other than AI, which I think both of us agree that is going to be the next big frontier? And something else might not be as revolutionary to the same scale and as imminent, but what would you see as the next biggest technology?
It's a wonderful, fun question, and of course, I don't know the answer, which is part of what makes living interesting. But I will say, there's an area that we have kind of seen an untapped potential for, or when customers get into it, they get wildly excited but it isn't talked about very much. And it's a set of tools. We are a tools company, so I think of everything through the lens of, hey, what tools does the world still need? There's a set of tools that we have gotten excited about that we call low code or no code tools, programming tools. And this is the ability, we have a set of products called the Power Platform, Power Apps, Power BI, Power Automate, et cetera. And the reason we're excited about these is because we see the amount of data, and you talk about this all the time, Raja, the amount of data is quite overwhelming that employees have access to. Like, the world of data has exploded. We see the opportunity to automate things in the workplace, things in your home life as incredibly high, but there aren't enough people out there in the world who know how to do that automation. And so the ability to have a very simple tool that lets you build a very simple app to automate some process that no IT person's ever going to get to inside the walls of MasterCard or inside the walls of Microsoft, but that somebody like you or me would actually, assuming we have no computer science background, would actually be able to automate on their own using these tools. We actually think this sort of no code automation technology is undervalued, under talked about. It doesn't have the sex appeal of a 6G super fast network. It doesn't have the sex appeal of all the Web3 technologies. But boy, it solves a very, very big problem that people have just sort of given up on even trying to solve. And we see that being a really exciting space in the next 5, 6, 7 years. And of course, you combine these multiple things, Raja, right? They don't live separately. So imagine being able to use a chat GPT like language to describe an app that you want, and good things happen in these sort of no code tools. That's an interesting space for us to explore. So not terribly sexy for you, but actually one of the things I'm very excited about.
So these are no code, low code automation tools, or there are tools beyond even automation?
No, that's it. You got it. They're sort of programming tools, let's say make it super easy to create a phone app, a mobile phone app to do whatever the process is that you wish you could automate, and make that as simple as writing a Word document or as simple as building a simple Excel spreadsheet. They're in the industry, they're called low code or no code tools, because you're not writing classical, code in a language like Python. You're literally just sort of describing things and having
conversational English, and then it'll give you the wow. That's fascinating. And I haven't, I barely heard about it or read about it. So this is something which I'm going to dive in. So you have given me something new to think about and new to sort of dive into.
As if you were busy enough.
Yeah, but I'm always looking for learning, so which is good. But from my perspective, I thought before this, my prognosis will be that augmented reality is going to be huge, because literally it adds a layer of relevant information to your physical world or even to the digital world. It can be game changing, and given the level of investments that are happening in this space and how the technology is advancing in this space, both from a device perspective, display perspective, as well as the coding perspective, this could be something which would be pretty transformational and in the very near future. So we will see. And particularly when it comes to things like healthcare tech is another area I thought that will be humongously advancing. And because I'm also one foot in the healthcare, I think our healthcare management will be completely transformed in the next 3 to 5 years. So something which is very exciting as well. Just to sort of move into one other important thing, which is we talked about how your company has reinvented itself again and again, and how it has really become a $2 trillion plus market cap company. And now it is going to define, or it's at the cutting edge and defining the future. Now, you have been with this company and you are a CMO of this, you're the CMO of this company. How are you going about reinventing yourself? And how are you helping the reinvention of your own team members so they are completely appropriate and relevant to the current context of the company and the future needs of the company? If you can shed some light on that, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, man, you don't go for the softball questions, do you, Roger? You go for the really big existential
We
questions.
don't
I
get
love
to
it.
talk to Chris Capossela every day, so might as well use the best of it when he's available.
Look, what you ask is just such a fundamentally important question for all of us. I'm very blessed that I work for a CEO who really deeply believes in this notion of a growth mindset, of curiosity, and of learning. And, I'm very well aware that if I don't deepen my knowledge, if I don't reinvent myself, A, I'll get stale and I'll get bored at work. And B, I won't be the person that should be in my job for what the company needs in the next stage of its life. So I need to ask the questions of, what are the areas I need to grow in? Where do I need to learn? And then I need to ask that for my leadership team. And I would really say for probably the top 100 people in my organization, I spend a lot of my time on, do we have the right top talent? And how do we nurture the people that we have to push themselves, to be high performers, to think of themselves like athletes in their jobs? And so that's a big effort for me. That's a big part of how I spend my time. But I have to be introspective myself on how it's going to go. I think for you and me, one of the most fun parts of our jobs is this notion of reinventing the marketing discipline.
Yep.
I think you've reinvented how MasterCard does marketing. And, we've talked at a bunch of conferences, and I've been amazed at some of your perspective that I think is counter to classical big marketing type marketing. The way you've done sponsorships, the way you think about partnering with other companies, that's worth a show all by itself where I interview you. But that's an example of saying, no, 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 I think for where we're going, marketing needs to change in the following 5 important ways. Now let's go retool the processes that we use, and let's go retrain the people we have or the people we hire. And that's what I try to do again and again. I'm lucky that my boss, that's what he wants me to do. He wants us to be very, very modern and to use technology in a big way. So that's the not so short but still relatively short answer. It's about learning. It's about figuring out how you need to change for what the company needs from you in the next 10 years, not what you did in the last 10 years. And then you have to retool and you have to retrain the people that you've hired. I love when people come to me and tell me, hey, I spent a bunch of years building this program that's now super mainstream, and I think we need to tear it down and start over because it worked for the old world. It's not
Times
going
have
to do.
changed. Absolutely. Now, if I can just ask a follow-up question to this, how do you go about your learning? What do you do to keep yourself up to date? How do you stay ahead?
I don't have any best practices. I was Bill Gates' speech assistant for 2.5 years, and I saw him reading just voraciously about books of all different types. I carry around a little sort of canvas book bag as we would go from city to city to do speech after speech. And in that bag were 30 or 40 books. And they'd be books on all sorts of things, books on China and books on India and books on cancer and books on bridge, the card game. And in this one bag, there was so many different topics. And so he taught me that, being more open to learning and trying to read different types of things. In my case, I do mostly listening as opposed to reading with something like Audible. But that was a really, really big eye-opening experience that I needed to have a broader lens than the job I had today. And that notion of, whether it's finding 3 news sources that are different from each other and spending time, with those 3 news sources, whether it's reading about books that aren't about marketing. Believe it or not, your book is one of the few that I've actually read that's purely about the discipline of marketing. I like to read books that are more systems level, that talk about the criminal justice system in America or that talk about the food system across the world. I tend to find systems based stories and stimulation very helpful for a tech person like me. But I don't have a brilliant, here are my 5 ways. It's pretty organic. It involves trying to get exposed to lots and lots of different broad systems level uh, thinking and philosophies that then I like to try to bring into the team itself.
Got it. In fact, we have got about, I guess, 3 or 4 minutes to close.
Wow.
So just let me ask you one quick question, which is, this is a topic I would not want to not touch upon because Microsoft is so renowned for it. And one of the reasons why I continue to work at MasterCard is also exactly the same, which is a true sense of purpose for the company, an impact that is made in the communities, to the world at large. Right, and the Microsoft has been doing enormous amount of stuff around, for example, accessibility or people with different abilities. And MasterCard has been doing things around, for example, what we call Priceless Planet, or we try to find cures for cancer through, we don't find it, through our partners like, Stand Up to Cancer, or with World Food Program, we try to feed poor children, etc. So I think there is a lot of similarity between the two companies. And one of the things I wanted to ask you is, when you are sort of focused so much on new technologies, and a very tech world is extremely rapidly moving and shifting, etc., how do you bring in that focus on purpose drivenness or societal impact? And if you can just shed some light, I know the answer because I have heard Satya himself, but for the benefit of the audience here who are listening to you and me, it'll be wonderful for them to get it, because many of the times I have seen this again and again. The perception when somebody talks about purpose is they say, this is all posturing, this is all faking, this is pretentious. There's a lack of credibility when a company says we are really, because there's so much of purpose washing anyway. So, but your company, and I feel very proud, and that's one of the main reasons why, if not the reason why I stick with MasterCard even after 9 years of working here. Not 31 years, but 9 years is not small either. But in the context of your company, just give me some light on that, and then we can close out on that particular question, which I think is very important.
Yeah, for us, I think Satya's really brought a focus on a mission. And we spent about 6 months working on what the mission of the company should be. And he wanted this notion of empowerment to be at the core of our mission, because he felt like our tools, it wasn't about Microsoft. The value we bring is giving tools to people who will then go do amazing things with those tools. So we're never going to be the cool company. The people who use our stuff are going to go do cool things with our tools. So he really rooted in this notion of empowerment. And I think that's a wonderful notion. He talks about empowering every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And that achieve more is very personal to who you are, to what your company wants to achieve. He's been a big advocate that if for us to be able to do business in any country around the world, we have to create a societal surplus in that country based on the way we behave. So for every dollar Microsoft makes, our partners make $5. If you think about the empowerment that giving a programming tool to somebody can allow them to build an application that then builds a whole ecosystem around it, it's a very empowerment-oriented culture and company. And he's taken empowerment and said, it's not just about Microsoft empowering others. I want every employee to be able to use Microsoft as a platform for what they care about. So we've also recognized there's this wonderful unlock where employees feel like the company supports them in their whatever they have passion for. So there's multiple facets to what empowerment actually means for us. And because he spends so much time talking about it, reiterating it, it has really become a huge part of the DNA of the company. And so he's a wonderful purpose-led leader. And we've been able to translate his passion, I think, into passion for all 250,000 employees on the purpose of the company and how you find your own purpose at the company using the company's platform as your platform.
Absolutely brilliant. More force to you guys. It's absolutely fantastic. Chris, thank you so very, very much. I know we are scheduled to be together again in the next few days. Looking forward to that. Yeah. But thank you. Really appreciate your time and your insights. I always find it very fascinating. Thank you so very much. And for our audience, folks, I hope you have, you are as inspired and as excited with the perspectives from Chris. And as I said often, this show is all about you, folks. What you find of value to you. And so please give me feedback, what you liked, what you did not like, what you'd like to see more of, which other speakers do you want me to bring to the forum. And very much looking forward to it. And thank you very much, everyone. Chris, once again, thank you so much. Please take care and see you soon.